Why did you get to go and not me? I demanded, my voice trembling with frustration. My eyes were locked on the closed door of the car, where my parents and my younger sister, Lily, were preparing to leave for their vacation. My mom glanced back at me from the driver's seat, her expression a mix of guilt and frustration. We've been over this, Anna. It was short notice, and Lily's school schedule was more flexible. I crossed my arms and leaned against the doorframe. That's not fair. I've been looking forward to this trip for months. It's always Lily who gets all the fun, while I'm left behind. Dad, who was placing the last bag into the trunk, sighed heavily. We had to make a quick decision, and we thought it would be better for Lily. We didn't mean to hurt your feelings. But you did, I muttered. It's like I don't even matter. Mom's face softened. It's not like that, honey. We just wanted to make sure Lily had a good time. We'll plan something special for you when we get back. I wasn't convinced. I could tell that this trip was more than just a vacation, it was a chance for Lily to shine, and I was the one left in the shadows. As they drove off, I felt a pang of resentment, a feeling I would later learn was just the beginning. 2 days later, the phone rang in the middle of the afternoon. I was lounging in the living room, trying to distract myself from the feeling of abandonment when I heard Mom's frantic voice on the other end. Anna, you need to come to the police station. Lily's in trouble. My heart skipped a beat. What happened? I don't have all the details yet, Mom said, her voice trembling. But she's been arrested. We need you to come. The world seemed to spin as I grabbed my coat and headed for the door. The trip to the police station was a blur. When I arrived, I found Mom and Dad huddled together in the waiting room, their faces etched with worry. They looked up when they saw me, their expressions a mix of embarrassment and relief. Mom, Dad, what happened? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Dad ran a hand through his hair, clearly stressed. Lily got into a fight with a local shop owner. It escalated quickly, and the police were called. They say she was causing a scene, shouting and throwing things. Mom wiped a tear from her eye. We were having dinner when the call came in. They said Lily had been disruptive and refused to cooperate. My heart sank. Lily had always been the center of attention, and I had hoped that this trip would give her a chance to shine, just not like this. I tried to process what I was hearing. My parents had always been quick to defend Lily, but now their faces were a stark contrast to the joy they had shown while planning the trip. Why would she act like this? I asked. What could have happened? Mom shook her head. We're not sure. The police said they'll question her and let us know what happens next. We waited in tense silence, the minutes stretching into hours. Finally, a police officer emerged from the back, his expression neutral. The situation has been resolved for now. Lily has been released, but she'll need to appear in court for the charges. I suggest you take her home and have a serious talk about her behavior. As we drove back to the hotel where Lily was staying, the silence was deafening. Lily sat in the back seat, her head bowed, clearly feeling the weight of her actions. I glanced at her through the rearview mirror, wondering how things had gotten so out of control. When we finally arrived, Lily stepped out of the car, her eyes red and puffy. Mom and Dad followed closely behind, their disappointment palpable. The once cheerful anticipation of the vacation had been replaced with a heavy silence. Lily, Dad started, his voice stern, what you did was unacceptable. We're all very disappointed. Lily's eyes flashed with anger. You don't understand. It's not my fault. They were being unreasonable. Mom took a deep breath. You need to take responsibility for your actions. This behavior is not acceptable. I watched as Lily's defiant stance crumbled, and she sank into a chair, tears streaming down her face. The entire family was engulfed in an uncomfortable silence, the vacation that was meant to be a joyful escape now overshadowed by Lily's actions. As the night wore on, I couldn't help but feel a strange mix of vindication and sadness. My parents had finally seen Lily's true colors, but at what cost? The vacation had turned into a nightmare, and I wondered what would happen next. The days that followed were tense and strained. Lily's behavior remained erratic, and the court date loomed over us like a dark cloud. My parents struggled to come to terms with the reality of Lily's actions, and I found myself caught in the middle, trying to make sense of the chaos. The once promised vacation had become a turning point, a harsh revelation of Lily's true nature and a painful reminder of how easily things could fall apart. Anna, can you come here for a moment? Dad called from the kitchen. His voice was low, and there was a weariness to it that I hadn't heard before. I walked into the kitchen, where Dad was sitting at the table with a cup of coffee. Mom was leaning against the counter, her expression distant. I could tell they were both struggling to make sense of everything that had happened. Sit down, Dad said, gesturing to the chair across from him. We need to talk. I took a seat, trying to read their faces. What's going on? Mom looked up, her eyes tired. We've been talking, and we need to address what's happening with Lily. We can't just pretend like nothing happened. I nodded, feeling the gravity of the situation. So, what's the plan? Dad sighed heavily. We've arranged for Lily to see a counselor when we get back. We hope it will help her understand the consequences of her actions. Mom added, and we need to figure out how to handle this before it gets worse. We can't keep making excuses for her behavior. I shifted uncomfortably in my chair. And what about me? It feels like I'm just here to clean up the mess. Dad's eyes softened. Anna, we know this hasn't been easy for you. We should have handled things better from the start. We're sorry. Mom nodded in agreement. We've been so focused on Lily that we didn't realize how much we were neglecting you. It's not fair, and we want to make it right. Their words were soothing but also filled with regret. I had been feeling like an afterthought for so long that hearing them acknowledge it was both comforting and unsettling. I wanted to believe that things would improve, but I knew it wouldn't be that simple. Over the next few days, the tension in the family was palpable. We tried to salvage what was left of the vacation, but the joy had been stripped away. Every activity was overshadowed by the shadow of Lily's arrest. We went through the motions, visiting local sites, eating out at restaurants, but it all felt hollow. At one point, as we were walking through a park, Lily turned to me, her face flushed with frustration. Why are you always so quiet? You're not the one who messed everything up. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my anger in check. I'm just trying to deal with this situation like everyone else. It's not about me right now. Lily scowled. Well, it's not fair. You've had it easy. I'm the one who's been thrown under the bus. Thrown under the bus? I shot back, trying to keep my voice steady. You're the one who caused this mess. You need to take responsibility. Lily's eyes narrowed. You don't get it. You never do. Before I could respond, Mom and Dad intervened, their voices rising in an attempt to defuse the situation. The argument fizzled out, leaving us all feeling more distant than before. That evening, as I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that things would never be the same. The vacation was supposed to be a time of bonding and relaxation, but it had become a time of division and resentment. I thought about Lily's future and what it meant for our family. How could we go back to normal when the cracks had been exposed? In the days that followed, Lily's behavior became more erratic. She was sullen and withdrawn, refusing to engage with the rest of us. It was as if the weight of her actions had completely crushed her spirit. Mom and Dad were constantly on edge, trying to manage Lily's mood swings while still dealing with the fallout from the arrest. The day of Lily's court appearance arrived, and the atmosphere in the house was tense. We all piled into the car, and the drive to the courthouse was filled with an oppressive silence. Lily sat in the back seat, her eyes fixed on the window, avoiding everyone's gaze. When we arrived at the courthouse, I felt a lump in my throat. The building loomed before us, a stark reminder of the gravity of the situation. We filed into the courtroom, where Lily's fate would be determined. As the proceedings began, I sat next to Mom and Dad, watching Lily as she faced the judge. The seriousness of the situation was palpable, and I could see the weight of it on Lily's shoulders. It was a stark contrast to the carefree image I had always associated with her. The judge listened to the charges and the defense's arguments before making a decision. Lily was given a chance to make a statement, and her voice wavered as she apologized for her actions. It was a moment of vulnerability that I had never seen from her before. When the judge handed down the sentence, community service and mandatory counseling, I saw a mix of relief and disappointment on Lily's face. It wasn't as severe as it could have been, but it was still a clear indication that her actions had consequences. As we left the courthouse, the weight of the day hung heavy on all of us. The vacation that was meant to bring us together had instead driven a wedge between us. The road ahead was uncertain, and the scars of this experience would take time to heal. In the quiet moments that followed, I found myself reflecting on the changes that had taken place. The vacation had exposed the cracks in our family dynamic, and it was clear that we had a long journey ahead of us to mend what had been broken. The weeks following the court appearance were a blur of awkward interactions and strained conversations. Lily's community service began immediately, and the once vibrant and carefree atmosphere of our home had turned into a tense battleground of unresolved feelings. One evening, as I was doing my homework at the kitchen table, Mom walked in and began to prepare dinner. The silence was thick, broken only by the occasional clink of utensils and the hum of the stove. Anna, Mom began, her voice tentative, how are you holding up? I glanced up from my notebook, feeling the weight of her question. I'm managing. Just trying to keep busy. Mom nodded, her face etched with concern. I know this hasn't been easy for you. It's been hard for all of us. I sighed. I'm just trying to understand why things got so out of hand. I thought this trip was supposed to be a break from all the drama. Mom took a deep breath. Sometimes, situations bring out the worst in people. We thought we were doing what was best for Lily, but we didn't realize how much it would affect everyone else. I looked at her, trying to gauge her sincerity. So what now? What do we do? Mom set down the knife she was using and sat across from me. We need to focus on rebuilding trust and understanding within our family. It won't be easy, but it's something we have to work on together. I nodded slowly, feeling a flicker of hope. I want to believe that things can get better. I really do. Later that week, I decided to reach out to Lily. We hadn't had a meaningful conversation since the court appearance, and I was eager to clear the air. I found her in her room, sitting on the bed with her laptop open, seemingly lost in whatever she was doing. "Hey, Lily," I said, knocking gently on the doorframe. She looked up, her expression a mix of surprise and reluctance. "What's up?" "I was hoping we could talk," I said, stepping into the room and sitting down on the edge of her bed. "About everything that's happened." Lily sighed and closed her laptop. "I don't know if there's much to say. I messed up, and now I have to deal with the consequences." "I know," I said softly. "But I think we need to talk about it. I want to understand why you acted the way you did. Maybe it'll help us both move forward." Lily's eyes softened, and she seemed to consider my words. "I guess I've been feeling really frustrated. Everything seemed to be falling apart, and I didn't know how to handle it. I thought lashing out would make things better, but it only made things worse." I nodded, trying to empathize. "It must have been really hard for you. But you have to understand that your actions affect everyone around you. We all had to deal with the fallout." Lily looked down at her hands, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt anyone." It was the first genuine apology I'd heard from her in a long time. I reached out and put a hand on her shoulder. "I appreciate that. And I want to work on rebuilding our relationship. We can't change the past, but we can try to make things better." Lily gave a small, hesitant smile. "Yeah, I'd like that." Over the next few weeks, we made a concerted effort to repair the damage that had been done. Family dinners became more frequent, and we tried to include Lily in activities to help her feel connected. The counseling sessions seemed to be helping, as Lily appeared more reflective and less defensive. Mom and Dad also made an effort to include me more, acknowledging my feelings and giving me space to voice my concerns. It was a slow process, but there were small signs of improvement. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, Dad cleared his throat and looked at all of us. "I want to say something. I know we've been through a lot, and we're still working through things, but I want us to be a family that supports each other, no matter what." Mom nodded in agreement. "We've learned some hard lessons, and we need to use them to become stronger as a family. We can't change the past, but we can shape our future." Lily looked at them, her expression thoughtful. "I agree. I've been trying to be better, and I hope we can all move forward together." I looked around the table, feeling a sense of cautious optimism. The road to healing was far from over, but the willingness to address our issues and work through them was a step in the right direction. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about the journey we had been on. The vacation had been a catalyst for change, exposing cracks in our family dynamic that we could no longer ignore. But it also provided an opportunity for growth and understanding. We were learning to navigate the complexities of our relationships, and while it was challenging, it was also a chance to rebuild and strengthen our bonds. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, I felt hopeful. We had faced a significant challenge, and although we had a long way to go, we were taking the steps necessary to heal and move forward. The months after the court appearance brought a cautious sense of normalcy to our lives. Lily's community service and counseling sessions became routine, and though the scars of the past were still fresh, there was a genuine effort to mend our fractured family. One crisp autumn Saturday, we decided to have a family outing, hoping to rekindle some of the warmth and connection that had been lost. Mom suggested we visit a nearby nature reserve, a place where we had spent many happy afternoons before things had started to unravel. "Let's make a day of it," Mom said, her eyes bright with a rare spark of enthusiasm. "Fresh air and time together might do us all some good." Dad agreed, though his expression was more reserved. "It's been a while since we did something as a family. Maybe this will help us reconnect." Lily and I exchanged a glance. It was clear that both of us were feeling the weight of our past actions, but the idea of spending a day outside, away from the usual pressures, seemed like a good opportunity to strengthen our bonds. We packed a picnic basket with sandwiches, fruits, and snacks, and set out for the nature reserve. The drive was filled with the usual small talk, punctuated by moments of comfortable silence. The sun was shining, and the fall foliage created a picturesque backdrop for our outing. As we arrived at the nature reserve, the vibrant colors of the leaves greeted us, casting a warm glow over the landscape. We set up our picnic near a peaceful clearing, the soft rustle of leaves and distant chirping of birds providing a soothing soundtrack. "Let's take a hike before we eat," Dad suggested. The trails here are beautiful, and it's a good way to get some exercise. Lily, who had been quieter than usual, nodded in agreement. Sounds good. I could use some fresh air. We set out on the trail, the crisp autumn air invigorating us as we walked. The conversation was light and easy, with Dad pointing out interesting features of the landscape and Mom sharing stories from her childhood. As we walked, Lily fell into step beside me. For a moment, it felt like things were returning to some semblance of normalcy. The tension from the past months seemed to dissipate as we talked about our favorite spots in the reserve and reminisced about past visits. Do you remember that time we got lost on this trail? Lily asked with a hint of nostalgia. We had to call Dad to come find us. I laughed. Yeah, and you were so convinced that you knew the way back. I think you were the only one who was convinced. Lily grinned. I was so sure. It's funny how things like that seem so big at the time, but they're just small moments in the grand scheme of things. Her words struck a chord with me. It was a reminder that despite the challenges we faced, there were still moments of connection and shared experiences that we could cherish. The outing wasn't just about escaping our problems, it was about finding common ground and remembering why we valued each other. As we reached the end of the trail, we settled down for our picnic. The food was simple, but it was a welcome treat after our hike. We ate together, sharing stories and enjoying each other's company. There was a sense of ease that had been missing for a while, a feeling of unity that we hadn't experienced in months. After lunch, we took some time to explore the reserve. We wandered through the trees, taking in the beauty of nature and enjoying each other's presence. Lily and I even found ourselves playfully racing to a nearby lookout point, laughing and joking as we went. As the sun began to set, casting a golden hue over the landscape, we headed back to the car. The day had been a success in many ways. It wasn't a magical fix for all our issues, but it had been a step in the right direction. On the drive home, I felt a renewed sense of hope. The day had been a reminder that while our family was far from perfect, there was still a foundation of love and connection that we could build on. The challenges we had faced were significant, but they had also brought us closer in unexpected ways. When we arrived home, we all felt a sense of accomplishment. We had faced our difficulties and come out the other side, not unscathed but with a deeper understanding of each other. The road to redemption was still long, but we were taking the necessary steps to heal and grow together. As I lay in bed that night, I reflected on the journey we had been on. The vacation that had started as a disappointment had turned into a turning point for our family. It had exposed our flaws and forced us to confront them, but it had also given us an opportunity to rebuild and strengthen our bonds. The future was still uncertain, but I felt more optimistic than I had in a long time. We had faced our challenges with honesty and determination, and while there was still work to be done, I was hopeful that we could continue to grow as a family. The road ahead would be filled with both triumphs and setbacks, but as long as we faced them together, I believed we could overcome anything.